I just turned 33 this week, and if I'm being honest, I frequently feel like I am not as far along as I would like to be at this point in my life in just about every area. But part of that is because I am not always good about looking back and seeing all the ways God's grown me and all the things He's taught me. So today's video is a combination of fun and random and practical and also deep, hard insights that God has taught me in the past year. Number one is that moving to a new house does not have to be stressful if you have systems and you are a minimalist and you decide that you are not going to allow it to become a stressful thing. Number two is when people offer to help, say yes. And if you don't have an idea right away of what they can help you with, add it to your to-do list to think of something that you can follow up with them and ask them for help, take up their offer for help. Number three is my biggest shift in productivity and task management in the last year, which is that being very specific about your next action and very clear about what you need to do to make progress on something versus writing down something that might actually technically be considered a project because it has multiple steps, or writing down something that's a little bit vague and not clear on what you need to do makes a world of difference and helps you get things done so much more quickly. Number four is that even when you think you might not be handling something well and you feel like I should be more positive or joyful or, Jesus-y about this because I'm a Christian, in comparison to how other people handle those kinds of situations, you might still actually be handling it very well. And that is a chance to share the truth of the hope that you have. Number five, sleeping with a weighted blanket is totally worth the hype. And by the way, I'm not going to leave you hanging with all these things that I'm talking about in this video. I'm mentioning like moving and, kind of hinting at my son's diabetes diagnosis and, mentioning a weighted blanket, all that. So I'm going to put links to all those things below this video so that you can find those products or watch videos or books that I mentioned or anything like that, okay? Number six is that being forced to confront your worst case scenario is actually very healthy. Right around the time that my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, there was a man at our church who we started praying for regularly because he was having severe complications with his type 1 diabetes and eventually ended up having part of both legs amputated. And that was so hard because when your child is diagnosed with something like that, your brain goes to those worst case scenarios. And the worst case scenario is losing your child completely. Like they die because their blood sugar is too high or too low. But after that, a lot of the things, the things that people think of are like these severe health complications, like an infection that leads to an amputation. And so seeing Paul in church, in his wheelchair, with his hands raised, and hearing his faith being so strong and realizing like this has been brutal for him and his wife and family, but he is okay, was so healthy for me because it helped me realize like even if the worst happens, it will be okay and George can be okay. Lesson number 7 is that I learned that according to the book, The Powerful Purpose of Introverts, on their introvert scale, I am an 88 out of 100 on the introvert scale, so very introverted. Number 8 is that God really reinforced for me that local, close proximity village is an incredible treasure. I am just so thankful for all of the people in our, literally in our neighborhood and who go to my son's school, and it's so good and just so special and valuable compared to even people who live 20 or 30 minutes away from you. Number 9 is that you can find a way to flip your story about just about anything if you choose to. So our house is close to a stoplight, and I didn't realize that when we have our windows open and people are at the stoplight with their music on and their windows down, you can hear it loud and clear in my house. So I decided that I would tell myself when I hear that music, instead of being annoyed and being like, why did I buy this house by a stoplight? That instead I would think you know what? that music is the sound of my fireplace and my 2-car attached garage. Because if this house wasn't located where it is, we would have not been able to afford this house. We wouldn't have wanted to spend the money. And I also decided that when I hear people's music, whether I'm outside playing with my kids or I'm even in my house and I hear the music in my house, I'm going to use that as a chance to dance. So take that. Number 10 is that taking time to do reflective writing, which obviously takes time, actually saves you time because of all the insights you gain from that. And I learned that from the book, The Power of Writing It Down. Number 11 is, this is a hard lesson to learn, but I learned that it usually takes way longer to make progress on house things than I think it will, but that's okay. Case in point, my office is bare. There's nothing. But that's okay. I highly value beautifully decorated homes, but I think I value them more in theory than in real life. Because obviously if that was a massive priority to me, I would be making more time to decorate my house and all that. But I'm okay with it. We'll make progress slowly, and in 10 years, it'll be great. Number 12 is, if I don't have the time to slow down enough to let my kids help me or to feel like I can be patient with them, that means that's a sign to me that I'm doing too much. That's going to happen once in a while. I can't prevent that 100% of the time, but in general, if I find that I cannot slow to their pace in my day-to-day life and let them help with things or let them struggle to do something themselves, that is not okay with me. That tells me gotta do less, gotta cram less into the day. Number 13 is a lesson I learned from Declutter Like a Mother, which is a book. I'll link to that, which is donating stuff instead of selling it isn't wasteful. It's actually generous. Duh. That's so freeing. I don't have to sell my stuff and feel bad if I don't sell it and I just donate it instead. That's actually a very generous, lovely thing to do. Number 14, I learned that being able to walk my son to school is just as magical, probably more magical than I even imagined it would be, and so worth it. A huge part of why we moved is to be in this school district, have a neighborhood school that we could walk to, that our neighbors go to, and that decision, barely anyone I know cares about that. And yet I'm so glad that Kyle and I trusted ourselves and our values, and that we knew it was worth moving to an area where, we have a small backyard and we pay a little bit more to live here because it's kind of like an urban, suburban area. And we live by a stoplight, right? But we can walk to so many amazing things, which we love to do in our family. And we can walk our son to school. It's 8 blocks away. And that has just been the best. And walking home with friends from school and just getting to know people so well. I have loved that. So I think I'm learning that I can trust my instincts and my values a little more, even if I'm everyone else is doing this for school for their kids. And everyone else seems to be moving further away from the city and wants a big yard and all that kind of stuff. Number 15 is that if you teach your kids how to handle tough times, eventually they will start reminding you of those things when you need it, which is really, really helpful, because my 5-year-old now, all the time, if I even get remotely frustrated or kind of about something, he'll be like, "Mommy, do you need to take a deep breath?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do, Harry. Thank you." It's so helpful. I can't wait till he's even older and he can be like, "Mom, do you really need to eat that chocolate?" Number 16 is that I learned, and it was reinforced for me, I guess, that digesting small amounts of scripture, even if it feels painstakingly slowly and you're sitting on one verse for days and days and days, wins out over reading through large amounts of scripture just about every time. It's so much more powerful, even though it feels am I doing anything? I'm not really making progress. Number 17, it is worth it to me to say no to even good things whenever possible, so that I do not miss out on Saturday night church at my church. I love it. It's the best part of my week. Number 18 is that it is worth the effort to find and, hire and interview and train a household assistant, and to have that person come on Saturday nights while we're at church, so we come home to a clean house before Sabbath. It's been so good. Number 19 is that when you bravely raise your hands in a church where very, very few other people are raising their hands, you actually invite other people to do it too and give them permission to do that. And Yeah. Number 20 is that if I don't write down people's names, like school families and neighbors, if I don't write down people's names in a Google Doc that I have after I meet them, I am way more likely to forget their name. Number 21 is most things are not permanent and they are worth trying to see how it goes. We tried dumb phones in the last year, link to that video below. I tried YouTube in the last year, here I am. And often, even if you change your mind about something and decide that that ultimately wasn't for you, you still end up better off than if you had never tried it at all, and God teaches you a lot through that. Number 22 is that identifying the 5 core priority areas of my life has brought so much clarity on what to say yes to and no to. Number 23, this was the hardest one probably. Someone close to me confronted me about this. I'm so grateful that they did, which is that I need to be careful about how my personal choices and values come across to others, because in my enthusiasm, it can come across as being judgy of other people's choices, or like I think I'm superior to them because of the choices that I make. Which leads me to number 24, which is that I want more relationships in my life where we can be honest with each other about hurts, things that hurt our feelings, or areas for growth that we notice in another person in a really kind way, and then handle that feedback humbly and graciously and end up stronger. That is so healthy in a relationship. And most of my relationships fall on like 2 opposite ends of the spectrum instead, which is like relationships where people basically never bring up any tension or tough things, and that stuff just gets like stuffed, or things are brought up, but it's not like the way it's brought up and then the way it's received is not very healthy, and it just creates tension without a lot of true resolution or understanding or empathy or change. Number 25, I learned that you can wrap dozens of Christmas presents very fast when you just put all the gifts for one person in one gift bag for them, and you use entirely gift bags. And I learned you don't even need to put your presents under the tree if they're not that cute or you think your kids will get into them. You can just throw all the stuff for your mom in one gift bag, all the stuff for your niece in one gift bag, put those things, put all the stuff in boxes ready for Christmas. Done. Number 26, I learned that tropical vacations are nice. That is my vacation of choice, laying on a beach. However, so is my real life. Like, my real life is really nice too. And it's way cheaper, and the food in my house is way cleaner and healthier than on vacation. And yeah. Number 27, I learned this from Paul Akers, the 2-second lean guy. When you notice something that is bugging you or that is inefficient or ineffective, whenever possible, just stop right then and fix it, instead of thinking over and over and over, like, I should fix that thing. I got to get that system in place. I got to, whatever. Declutter this area and organize it so it's not a disaster when we leave every day. Just like stop right then whenever possible and fix it right then. Number 28, I learned that I am thankful to hear the ambulances going past my house often, because now that my son has type 1 diabetes, it gives me a chance to pray for people, and it means that I live really close to the hospital that my son needed to go to and still does need to go to often. Number 29 is that even though I want to place my hope in earthly things so badly, like technology, like my son's Dexcom, his continuous glucose monitor that like tells us his blood sugar. I want to place my hope in those things. I want to place my hope in that Dexcom, that it will keep my child alive, that it will not let him die in the middle of the night from a low blood sugar or something. Those things are just not worthy of placing my hope in. And there is ultimately nothing that I can do to completely ensure my child's safety. Any control I think I have is a mirage. And so I have to accept that my child's life is fragile. Everyone's life is fragile. And remember that a loving God is in control. Number 30, I learned that you can get paint mixed in the different saturation levels. So our whole house is painted Sherwin-Williams alabaster at 75% strength. I learned that from Studio McGee. So I was a little nervous, like, is it a little too creamy and a little too off-white for this house? And so instead of having it be full strength of, the color that they put into it, which I know it looks like no color, but there is some color. I had them do it at 75% strength. Number 31 is that if I use self-tanning lotion, which I found a really good natural one, I will link below. This is like fake, the tiny bit of tanness that I have. If I use self-tanning lotion and therefore I don't feel like so sickly pale in winter, then I don't mind it as much when my roots grow out. And I haven't highlighted my hair since January and I don't really care. Number 32, I learned that sugar and alcohol usually aren't worth it for me, separately or together. Like the enjoyment of it is usually way less than just like the pain and feeling like crap. And number 33, this is a lesson that I'm still working on and learning, particularly as a result of my son's diabetes diagnosis, which is that I can hold mourning and rejoicing all at once. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, I'll put links to some of the resources and videos and things below if you want to go deeper on some of this stuff. And I hope you subscribe so we can hang out again and check out the free resources I have for you as well. All right, bye. Love you.